All right, how's it going, everyone? Thank you for joining me on a new episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week. My name's Josh, and we got a new episode for the week of May 22nd. And if you're new to Best and Worst Track of the Week, welcome. All Best and Worst Track of the Week is a weekly segment on this podcast where I talk about music, and I take all new entries into the Billboard Hot 100, give them all a letter grade, and take one that's the worst. Take one that's the best, and this is a pretty cool week. Lots of different artists on here, a lot of different genres as well. So that's always a good thing to have a lot of variety. We have some Blake Shelton on here, Toliver, Pink, Lil Tecca, Coldplay, Trippie Red, and Playboi Carti, and some J. Cole as well. So stick around if you want to hear some track reviews on some of the latest music those artists have put out. And overall, I was quite pleased with this week. I didn't really listen to anything I really hated or really disliked. It all seemed pretty fun to at least listen to on the first listen. And this episode is dropping a bit, later than usual. But I think Billboard had some issues putting it out on the typical Tuesday drop date. It ended up dropping sometime around Wednesday-ish. So not really blaming that though. I just got really busy, and we're just gonna get around to it. But before we get started, just want to let everyone know, new episode of the album review series dropped last night. We're covering J. Cole, The Off Season. Pretty interesting album overall. It surprised me in many ways, and I ended up enjoying it. So if you have some time, check out that album by J. Cole. And check out the review if you have some time. That's episode 58, the most recent episode. You can find it wherever you found this podcast. And this album more than likely is going to be reiterated in the next week with the next Best and Worst Track of the Week, because I'm expecting an album bomb. So we got that out of the way. And just to also touch on last week, it is a bit of old news for Best and Worst Track of the Week, but for the week of May 15th, Billie Eilish versus DJ Khaled ended up being the Best and Worst Track. Your Power was a really solid track, and I don't even remember. I think it was the 21 Savage Justin Bieber feature from the DJ Khaled album that ended up getting Worst Track of the Week. But we basically covered all the big hits and entries off that mini album bomb from the Khaled album on last week's episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week. But also we touched on some other artists such as Billie Eilish with Your Power. Cole Swindell's in there. But and just for some upcoming content to look out for, we are doing the most recent Crumb album that released late April. I will get around to that in the next few days. So be on the lookout for that. And let's go ahead and move on with this episode in general. We have a lot of interesting artists overall that dropped in. Feels kind of like last week. This week seems like this is starting to feel like summer, where a lot of different artists are dropping their summer singles. So we got a lot of that this week. I enjoy weeks like this because it actually seems like we're covering a vast variety of things other than just an album bomb or something like that. And some highlights on the chart this week. We have Leave the Door Open by Silk Sonic up to number 1. That one really surprised me. I was not expecting this to stay that high up. It's just been really consistently at the top for a few weeks now, and it's a great track. When we covered it on Best and Worst Track of the Week, I gave it Best Track of the Week. There was literally no competition for it. Last week it was number 2, but now it's number 1. It seemed like Dua Lipa or Save Your Tears was still at its throat, but hey, it's at number 1. More power to Silk Sonic for that. I'm really hoping that project, that full-length project, drops soon. Number 2, Levitating by Dua Lipa, the remix with DaBaby. This song is ancient by now. I don't know how or why it's getting so big just now. It's been on the radio for quite some time, but congrats to Dua Lipa with that. Then also another head-scratcher, Forever After All by Luke Combs, up to number 22. I know that's not that high, but it did actually increase a little bit from last week, and I just feel like this track should be dying by now. I don't know if it's just killing the country radio rotation at the moment because there's nothing else to play, but hell, I mean, it's a decent track. Your Power by Billie Eilish, the best track last week, down to number 29. Pretty steep drop. I was not expecting it to go down that hard, but hey, it might have a resurgence. Then also to just jump on the country thing again, Breaking Up Was Easy in the 90s by Sam Hunt, up to 32. I've been watching this the past few weeks, and it's been steadily climbing and climbing. Now it's at a spot where I think I just have to bring it up. This song, when I first heard it, and I think I reviewed it a couple months ago, don't really see what's appealing about it, just due to the fact that it's probably a less than subpar, or just a subpar Sam Hunt track, and it just being pretty dumb and simple on the lyrical content side. But hey, it must be catchy. I'm certainly not re-listening to it. Heat Waves by Glass Animals, up to 33. This is steadily climbing as well. It's been a slow riser, but it's kind of approaching that top quarter. It may get up there. We'll just have to see. Also, Arcade by Duncan Lawrence, up to 78. I thought this track would have been dead in the water because it re-entered at some point. Now it just seems like it's maybe slowly rising too. We'll have to see. And then also some dropouts out of the chart were from the track Go Crazy by Chris Brown and Young Thug. I really don't care much for this track. Honestly, this track is so old now that it came out before I even started Best and Worst Track of the Week. But it was at 28 last week, and it bounced out. So something happened where people stopped listening to it. And then most of the DJ Khaled stuff that dropped last week is out. So yeah. Let's go ahead and get into some tracks. Alright, so first track this week at 96, Minimum Wage by Blake Shelton. I haven't really covered Blake since that one collab track with Gwen Stefani around last summer. This track is just a bit confusing, mainly due to the fact that I can't quite tell if it's a love song or it's just some subpar commentary on how being poor isn't really all that bad from Blake Shelton's perspective. But that can totally be up to the listener. To me, it seems like it is just a bad romantic love song that has a lot of metaphors about being broke. And there's a weird prominence of the piano constantly all throughout this track, just playing the same riff every time it's brought out, and it just seems a bit gimmicky. They really push out the piano in the mix at some points, and it's a bit one-dimensional when it enters. There's some kind of classic rock thing going on. At times, it feels like a Rolling Stones copy. Not sure what to think. It's really not all that country, other than like the very simple lyrical content and the songwriting sort of tropes that are coming out of this. It's a confusing track in the grand scope of the country scene, honestly. I just don't know how it fits in. But it's also not the worst thing I've heard. It's just confusing. I give it a B-. Next track, at number 82, What You Need by Don Toliver. Honestly, this is a bit of a disappointment. I haven't really jumped on the Don Toliver train, but there's been several features and tracks where I thought he was decent on them, such as Lemonade, that loaded feature-heavy track from that Internet Money in the summer with Nav and Gunna and I don't know the other artists, but Don Toliver was decent on that track. This kind of just, like, right off the bat in the intro, just sounds like a sad Ozuna track, the reggaeton artist Ozuna. Also, there's a bunch of alt R&B slathered all throughout this, a la like The Weeknd, early Weeknd. Definitely, it's a vibey track. There's some lush synth textures that develop the track nicely as it progresses, but the track just feels lethargic. It lacks expression at times, and we do get to the end where there is a bit more vibrance and colorful, textures going on with like this melodic bass line thing coming out in the forefront. But at that time, it's just a bit too late. I gave this a C+. Next track, Never Left by Lil Tecca at 56. So yeah, Lil Tecca, I do tend to lean more on the positive side, like towards like my general overall consensus of him. I think he's a little bit more, I guess, talented or intriguing than the average trap rapper in this pop trap game. The beat on this track, there's like a Lil Uzi Vert type aesthetic going on. It's bubbly at times, but there is a groove to it that I can enjoy. And it's a pretty like melodic performance by Tecca overall. He's mixing that singing and rapping thing up quite seamlessly, and it's pretty cool. And he just executes it quite well. Honestly, Tecca just sounds to me on this track like a more competent Kyle. Yeah, that artist that got big in like 2017 about some Instagram-like song that everyone has forgotten by now and pretty much has forgotten Kyle. It's kind of what Lil Tecca is reminding me of a bit on this track. It's just more enjoyable, and I think the dude's a little bit more talented as well. He has a fast, versatile flow on times on this track that's really quite flashy. I give it a B+. Next track, Miss the Rage by Trippie Redd and Playboi Carti at 11. If you're familiar with a lot of my reviews, I tend to really dig into Trippie Redd. I really don't fuck with the guy much of the time. I think he just sounds obnoxious. But on this track, he surprised me. First of all, though, the sound tag at the very beginning, I forgot what it says, but it's really corny and cheesy, and it's about Trippie Redd. I really did not like that. But there's a typical sounding Playboi Carti type beat on here with the distorted and lush synths saturating the track. And Trippie admittedly rides this beat quite well. He's honestly the main character on this. Carti's, I guess, input on this is a bit minimal. In terms of like his presence and when he's actually appearing. He gets one verse that is very standard in terms of like what he provides on most tracks. But I will say this track just has the instrumental going for it. It's satisfying, but nothing really changes in terms of like what Carti is bringing to the game or like how he's evolving as an artist on here. This just sounds like if you had to describe Playboi Carti to someone that just needs a very quick example, you would just show him this track when he comes in to just get it out of the way and say, yeah, that's Playboi Carti, if no one knew what he sounded like. And Trippie is honestly the most intriguing thing on here. It's kind of sad just because he sounded passable, and it ended up working, I guess, so I gave this a B. Next track by J. Cole, Interlude at number 9. This is the last song before Best and Worst track. And I like this track. I did thoroughly review it on the episode that I just released with the album review, or at least I talked about it a lot. This track really, in my opinion, isn't really much of an interlude. And just to put it out there, he just sounds a lot like Kanye on this track, but J. Cole, in my opinion, is just a more competent rapper. But the beat is just very Kanye sounding as well. I would have liked to hear in the mix the harpsichord or guitar texture that's floating around a bit more. It sounds very buried. The track would have been a little bit more colorful and interesting if that was brought out. But overall, it's a decent track. Like, that J. Cole album is pretty solid, so I give this a B. And if you're expecting, and if you're a little bit interested, go check out that J. Cole review and listen to that album, because hell, I mean, it surprised me, and I'm not honestly a J. Cole fan. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into Best and Worst track. So it's that point of the show where we talk about Best and Worst track. We always start with Worst track to leave on a positive note. Worst track this week, honestly, this track just it just annoyed me just enough that where I kind of just had to do it. And it's an artist that I kind of respect. All I Know So Far is the name of the track by Pink. It just sounds like it's a bit of a cop-out or sellout, or she just really doesn't know what else to do at this stage in her career, and this is what came about. First of all, for being a pretty powerful voice in throughout most of her discography, it sounds like she's just trying to compete with the mix a lot at many points in the track. For some reason, the instrumental just sounds massive, and she doesn't. And she just really goes for this forced power chorus that I guess it's just a bit too safe sounding, but it's really meant to sound epic. and I really don't think it does that. There's some big drum hits solely for the aesthetic going on, like some indie folk mid 2010 vibes. It sounds like a Phillips song, honestly. And I'm not sure if she can really, if this type of thing is really even viable in the modern pop scene. But I don't know. It's an interesting choice. She's certainly done better. And I'm honestly pretty bored by the track, by the time the track is wrapping things up. So didn't hate it, but, it's just a bit disappointing to see from an artist like Pink that has certainly done better. And, yeah, best track of the week though. Hell, I mean, Higher Power by Coldplay. Wasn't really expecting to dig this as much as I really did just by listening to it for the first time, with like some headphones on and just paying attention to it, for its runtime. But yeah, I really did like it. I've heard it a bit on like ads and TV because they're really promoting the shit out of this. I guess there's a Coldplay album over the horizon. But yeah, this track is just it leans heavily on 80s new wave. It's really centered around this deep synthy bass that's spaced out, and it's quite punchy. It's in like again, it's hammering on that new wave style. The overall track though, as it's building up to like the chorus and like what they're going for, is a nice build up that has like some tension and energy as it's progressing. A bit like maybe like a Twin Shadow song when he's kind of in a similar vein to this. A very power pop kind of chorus though. It ends up being quite bright and sparkly, with those synths coating, the track all throughout. And it's an enjoyable listen. That's automatic. What it comes down to, that this was just enjoyable. A very Sting and Police, sort of, influence on this as well, especially at the end. Chris Martin is pretty much doing a Sting impression. It kind of just reminded me of that, and it's a solid track, and it's better than the last album, I think. A lot of the stuff on that album, that is. So anyways, thanks for listening to this episode. If you stuck with me on this episode of Best Orange Track of the Week, tune in next week if you'd like. But other than that, keep on checking out for new releases. I'm gonna really try pushing for that Crumb album here in a couple days, so be on the lookout for that. And take care of yourselves. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Also leave a comment, good or bad. And also subscribe on your preferred listening service, whether that be Spotify, TuneIn, Podbean, or whatever the hell you're on. Anyways, see you later.